Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is Meditation and Mindfulness with Rabbi Adam Kligfeld.
Good morning to everyone who's here in Pilch Hall at Temple Beth Am on this Friday morning. Hello and good morning. I assume it's morning to anyone who might be watching live on Facebook on my profile or on Temple Beth Am's page, but you might be somewhere else in the world, in which case, good afternoon. And hello to anyone who might be listening to this on the Temple Beth Am podcast asynchronously. It's wonderful to be with you in real time and across time to claim some minutes for the mind to settle, for the spirit to kind of rejoin with the body, and to use the texts of our tradition as a way of pulling back so that we can descend deep. Parshat Ki Tavo begins with the ritual of the Bikurim. Our ancestors were farmers, agriculturalists. It was a society of plants and animals and not really industry that we could think of. So nearly every person's living was dependent on what the fields or the livestock could produce. And we're told before we enter the land of Israel that when you finally enter the land of Israel and you complete the trajectory from enslavement to being recommitted to being God's servants at Sinai to establishing a home for yourself, hooray, you're free to live your lives as you wish. And every year, the first and best things that you have produced with the sweat and toil of your own bodies don't belong to you. Think about it. It's a really challenging ask for people who have left a situation where nothing belonged to them to be told now again, the best that you have doesn't belong to you. And it's interesting that the ritual that is done for the Bikurim ceremony, you can make the argument it has nothing to do with the ceremony itself. The ritual, you all know well, they would come before the Kohen and they would recite the very passages that we spend time looking at in the Haggadah, Arami Oved Ovi, my father was a wandering Aramean, or if you're my 11-year-old sister at a Seder in the 1980s, you read it as my father was a wandering Armenian. And you stood there and you basically told the story of the Israelite people. Why that story when you're offering up your first batch of barley or your first batch of whatever fruit you're producing? It's unclear. It doesn't say why. My theory is that why would anyone be willing to give the best of what they have if they didn't feel totally connected to the national story that is requiring that of them? And so that's the frame I want to use as we jump into this meditation about how we give our own version of Bikurim to the stories and the narratives and the peoples to which we're most deeply connected. If you haven't already, I want to invite you to close your eyes. Start allowing the soft but reliable magic of a meditative mode to take over you. The wonder of closing your eyes not for slumber, but for a very different kind of wakefulness. You might notice a jumble of thoughts and counter thoughts, disconnected from one another, inchoate images just rising in your mind. It takes effort to place your mind in a place of no effort. Be patient as the images begin to settle down like the very end of a batch of popcorn. The popping slows. Everything begins to get a bit more quiet and calm and still. Pay some attention to your breathing, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, and deepening it or slowing it if you want. You can also just keep it at a regular pace, but be aware of it. And it's your first go-to, your first lifesaver as your mind wanders. If you notice you're in a thought and you're not even sure how you got there, come back to breathing. If you notice that you're far away from your body, far away from presence in this room, come back to your breathing. Using nishima, the breath, to enliven neshama, your spirit. And repose in yourself. Find all of the rooms and chambers and cavities inside your body and inside your mind where you can find repose. You have sufficient capacity, needing nothing and no one else to find this repose. Your stillness, your eyelids blocking vision, your intentional rhythmic breathing. Repose in yourself. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to want. Who are your people? What is your narrative? And which bikurim do you offer? Who are your people? What story do you feel most connected to? And what are your first fruits that you bring to that altar? Are you holding back? And why? Is there an altar that is deserving of your bikurim, but you haven't given? And bikurim here could be time, words, compassion, presence, tzedakah. Just the highest offerings that you and God's image can offer. Which altar is bereft of your bikurim? Using the great power of your mind's eye, I want you to watch yourself offering first fruit to a recipient unexpected, a recipient that did not know it was coming. And when you tell them the story of why you offer this bikur, this choice presentation, you see the recipient light up, filled with grace and gratitude. You give the bikur because it's good to give. And you give the bikur because it's a blessing to receive. Who are your people? What are your holy narratives and stories? And what do you offer? What more can you offer as your bikurim? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to this room, this moment, this post-meditative sense of well-being, hopefully. I'm going to share the screen and also almost enough copies. Here, maybe Scott, you can sit next to him and share. Share that with Sandra. We'll say this closing blessing together as we close this moment. We say this 3 times. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. I say to you all, Shalom and Shabbat Shalom, and Namaste. Be well. Thanks for being here. We do this just about every Friday morning, right after Daily Minyan, 8:15 Pacific time, always available later that day on the podcast.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.